We are back. Why am I showing this? Because our topic is wrestling events that had to change, storylines that had to adjust, or outright cancel because of certain circumstances. And Peanut Gallery and I were debating how we were going to separate this. And I covered these events on the human perspective, where Peanut Gallery is through acts of God.
Yeah, like natural disasters.
Right. But I said acts of God to expound upon that further. Mm-hmm. So the first one, you can't go wrong with the original WWF screw job with Wendy Richter and the Spider Lady. Mm-hmm. Because this was a shoot.
Yes.
And this changed plans because Wendy Richter was trying to move mountains for her to get paid more as equivalent with Hulk Hogan based on her popularity. So McMahon was like, we got to get the title off of her. Mm-hmm. The Fabulous Moolah can do it.
Right.
So this was part of that. And then this was a shoot fight after. Mm-hmm. And Richter quit the company. And she didn't show back up until her Hall of Fame induction.
Well, then there we go.
Which was pretty cool. So this one was kind of a weird one. Where the original match at Survivor Series in 1993 was Jerry the King Lawler and his Knights versus the Hart family. Jerry the King Lawler was fired by WWE before the match because he was being sued by the 13-year-old girl for rape or grape. Sorry. And he was replaced
Demonetized.
Yes. And he was replaced by Shawn Michaels. Once again, had to adjust on the fly. This was the day of the show itself. So Shawn Michaels was in there with, I guess, a bunch of knights, but these are the knights. They don't look like knights. They look like bootleg Power Rangers.
Yeah.
So that was kind of neat. Jeff Hardy's. So this is what originally was going to happen. The match was going to go longer, and Hardy apparently was going to win.
Yeah.
Now, he got really high somewhere, and he stumbled out there, and Sting had to pin Hardy.
Yep.
And Bischoff had to come out there and say, you got to end this match fast. Hardy is fucked. So, once again, human error, human circumstance that had to come in. Hardy was, I'm not sure if he was released, but he was put on suspension. They had to adjust his storyline when he came back to serve the redemption arc.
Yep.
And Sting had to continue where Hogan basically kicked Hardy out of Immortal as well. Yeah. Stone Cold Steve Austin. You're like, wait, they had to change stuff with Stone Cold? When he walked out in 2003, they had to adjust a lot of things. He was the general manager of Raw. He was the co-general manager of Raw. So they had to adjust all major storylines as it relates to Austin. The Rock and Mr. McMahon did shoot promos in front of the crowd, trashing Austin for being a coward and walking out on everybody. And the planned match with Stone Cold Steve Austin and Brock Lesnar was obviously scrapped as well. And Steve Austin didn't return until, 2012, 2013, something like that? Daniel Bryan's, just his entire thing of the yes movement.
Yeah, like the meteoric rise changed plans a lot. I think the same thing happened with Kofi Kingston, too.
It did. It absolutely did. That one, I think, was a little more... I think they accepted it a little more than Daniel Bryan's, because Daniel Bryan, they just did not want him to be in this spot. But he was just too popular. Yeah. The crowd was taking over every segment from the Royal Rumble in 2013 to the championship win at WrestleMania 30. It was crazy just watching the fans literally take over every single show for Daniel Bryan.
Yeah.
And this is sort of where that whole thing came from, was they had to change things on the fly. The original main event was going to be just Randy Orton and Batista for the WWE World Heavyweight Champion.
Right.
But then they had to change it.
Yeah.
Because of this.
They did.
Rey de Reyes. So this one is kind of fun. I wanted to do a little international flavor as well. So in 1999, Rey de Reyes had to be delayed by 2 hours because a wrestler who is also a gang member was shot outside of the venue. Luckily, he survived, but they had to do an investigation. They had to clear everybody away from the venue area because the show didn't start yet. People were waiting in line when it was happening, the wrestlers were walking in. So that was a delay. There were actually a lot of them in Mexico. There was this one, Triple Mania, one of the Triple Manias where it was LA Park and La Parka for the name LA Park actually had to be rushed because a riot was happening in the crowd during the match. People were fighting each other in the crowd because that's how... People don't understand how big LA Park was in Mexico. And that name is still gigantic. So the parks going against each other with all of that drama was incredible. There was a main event match in the 80s for CMLL. It was CMLL at the time. It involved Conan. They were doing the match, and Conan was stabbed. And they had to take him to the hospital immediately, and they had to cancel the rest of the show. Because obviously you can't do that.
Right.
Now, from there, let's go to Japan, because Japan also had a lot of these. The death of Mitsuharu Misawa, who was I think the main booker and the top star in pro wrestling Noah. When he died in the middle of the ring, they stopped that show entirely. The backstage politics had to totally adjust themselves too because of the death. You know, when your main booker and your top star dies, clearly there's something there had to happen.
Right.
That was unmitigated chaos when it came to that. And then obviously the event where he landed on his head, essentially got internally decapitated because his neck was so fucked. It was so bad that he just landed, had a heart attack, died in the middle of the ring.
Fun.
This is Kenta Kobashi. Kenta Kobashi was diagnosed with liver cancer and had to retire from pro wrestling immediately. The problem with this is that he was, once again, their main star. And he was, I think, their main champion at that time. So a lot of plans had to be changed. He did the retirement at the very beginning of that show. Nobody knew. He didn't even tell Pro Wrestling Noah staff at that time. He was like, I have to retire. I have to do this. So that's what happened there. And the big drama in 2014 regarding Tetsuya Naito and the double champion stuff. Because Tetsuya Naito was not the original winner of the double titles. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think it was Kota. I think it was Okada, because there were 3 matches. It was for the IWGP Intercontinental Champion and the World Champion on night 1, and then night 2 was the
double title.
The double title. It wasn't a title unification; it was for a double title. But Naito won the match because Naito was the favorite for everybody, and there was such a backlash online that they had to adjust. Number 1, don't listen to people online, and number 2.
Even though we're ironically online.
Yes. And that is my part there. So let me do this really quick. Just to give Peanut Gallery a little bit of a break.
Yes, because now it's my turn to talk about some events that happened that were...
Yes, events that had to be adjusted due to acts of God.
Yes. So, okay. So Armageddon 2004 was originally going to be in Orlando, Florida, but it was moved to Duluth, Georgia, which is a suburb of Atlanta, and it's a fairly small arena. It only seats only had an attendance of 5,000 people.
Right.
And the reason for it was there was hurricane threat, essentially, is what moved Armageddon from Orlando to Duluth, Georgia. Now, you're going to see a lot of these hurricane threats. WWE and AEW they both have major operations in Florida. They run a lot of shows out of Florida. You're going to get a lot of these Florida related issues.
Yep.
And hurricanes are one of them, especially in hurricane season. Even though Armageddon was not in hurricane season, there was still that threat there, so it had to be moved.
Yep.
Nothing had to be changed. But we will talk about some changes that had to be made. Other things that happened too, WrestleMania 7 in 1991. Now, the whole story behind this was it had to be moved because of quote, security reasons, because this was the middle of Sergeant Slaughter's Iraqi sympathizer storyline. In actuality, the reason it was moved indoors was because there were rumors of earthquakes. Now, you have to keep in mind this was right after the big San Francisco earthquake of 1989.
Yep.
And there was a lot of fear about an earthquake occurring in the Los Angeles area, which still has not happened, but that is, we are not a natural disaster YouTube channel.
Right.
We will not talk about that one. So it was originally going to be at the Memorial Coliseum. So it was moved to that smaller venue because they were afraid of...
What was the original location?
The Coliseum.
What was the location that they figured out?
They just moved to the sports arena. So like right across the street. At the time, the Los Angeles Memorial Sports Arena.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was just moved indoors. The Coliseum is a very historic structure.
Yep.
And it is made of stone, and they tended not to do well in earthquakes.
No. Does that Coliseum still exist?
The Coliseum, yes, still exists, but the
sports arena doesn't.
sports arena does not. That's where the Los Angeles Football Club plays soccer. I don't have pictures for this, but I do have a couple of other instances in which regular shows were canceled because of natural disasters.
Oh, also, just keep in mind with WrestleMania 6.
Yep.
This is 6. They also, actually, no, this is 7. So, there was also that rumor that they moved it because of poor ticket sales. As well.
Yes, that was another rumor. I don't know if that one is true or not. But a WCW show in September of 1999 had to be canceled because of Hurricane Floyd, in which the company refunded the fans.
Yep.
And rescheduled events in other locations. In 2015, a WWE Raw show in January had to be canceled and replaced with a studio show from their headquarters, featuring interviews and highlights from that previous Royal Rumble because of a blizzard. A SmackDown in October of 2016 had to be relocated from Orlando, Florida to Green Bay, Wisconsin because of Hurricane Matthew. And a AEW Dynamite show in September 2022 had to be relocated because of Hurricane Ian. So there were a lot of different hurricanes have affected a lot of different shows, at least here in the States. WWC, which is the Puerto Rico-based promotion, also had to reschedule events because of Hurricane Maria and Fiona. So there was a lot of hurricanes causing a lot of issues.
Well, it's so easy to run shows out of Florida because they have the capacity, especially within like Orlando and Jacksonville and all of these places, they have that room. Luckily here, the worst thing that we have is
the only other big event that had to be rescheduled because of acts of God is Triple Mania Regia in 2021. And that was due to, quote, heavy rain and wind. Don't know what that means, but
it's heavy rain and wind.
Yes. If you know anything about Monterey, it is a very mountainous area. Yep. So you have to be a little more careful when there is rain because it's also very dry. So a lot of runoff can cause flooding. Obviously, wind is not good for an outdoor show because this was an outdoor show.
Yep.
So that's kind of what happened there. But that's all I've got. Not a lot of storylines had to be changed because of weather, but weather can just change logistics.
Just upheaval of the entire show.
Yeah.
Or delay.
Yeah.
So when we come back, we have a very special match to watch.